1943 named Lorraine Wagner, who sent a fan letter to an actor named Ronald Reagan. Reagan took the time to sit down and write a short note of thanks in return. For the next 50 years, Lorraine and Ronald were pen pals. He wrote to tell her about his career, his marriages, and all the mundane things that friends share with one another. She wrote the same things to him. Even after Reagan was elected president, he and Lorraine kept in touch. Their correspondence ended in 1995 when Reagan's Alzheimer's disease made it too difficult for him to continue writing. For 52 years, Lorraine, an average citizen, was a pen pal with a man who became the leader of the free world. Do you have a pen pal, someone that you write to? Paul says that we are better than pen pals. We are living letters. He writes, "Are we beginning to commend ourselves again? Or do we need, like some people, letters of recommendation to you or from you? You yourselves are our letter, written on our hearts, known and read by everyone. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts." Have you ever thought of yourselves as a living letter? Here's the background. In Paul's time, strangers, especially foreign teachers, often carried letters of commendation to prove their credentials and to ease their introduction into a new society. Paul had no such letter of commendation. Instead, he claimed that the transformed lives of the Corinthian believers were his living letters of commendation. He didn't need ink for this writing because it was done by the Spirit writing its message on their hearts. I'd like to think that each one of us is a living letter of commendation for this congregation. I'd also like to think that each one of us is a letter of commendation for Christ. Living letters. Think what that means. We are communicating daily to those around us, whether God lives in our hearts. We are communicating daily whether we take this God business seriously. We're communicating daily a positive or negative view of the universe. When the Holy Spirit lives in our hearts, we are living letters from God. Wow. I believe that there are 3 ways that we communicate our love for God. By our confession, what we say, by our conduct, what we do, and by our countenance, how we appear. Let's begin with our confession, or what we say. When early printers used hand-set type, they received an order to print a collection of Alfred Tennyson's poems, and when they did, they immediately ordered extra of some letters, the letters L and V, for their presses. They knew Tennyson. He used the word love so often in his poetry that the average set of type couldn't possibly supply all the necessary letters. Wouldn't it be wonderful, wonderful, if each one of us spoke so many words of love that anyone making a transcript of our conversation would have to have an abundant supply of the letters L and V? Wouldn't wonderful. What do I mean by words of love? Words of encouragement, words of praise, words that make people feel better about themselves and make people feel better about God. Words have such enormous power. Villagers in the Solomon Islands in the South Pacific have a curious way of cutting trees. If a tree is too large to be felled with an axe, the natives cut it down by yelling at it. At dawn, woodsmen sneak up on a tree and they scream at the top of their lungs. They do this every day for 30 days. Supposedly, then, the tree dies and falls over. The theory is that yelling kills the spirit of the tree. I don't know for certain that this could be validated by science, but I have seen the spirit of some people killed by careless words. Conversely, I've seen spirits raised by words of encouragement. In fact, researchers found that weightlifters are able to lift up to 8% more when they got verbal encouragement from someone. We can make a difference in someone's life just with our words. There was an article in Life magazine about a remarkable young man named Eric Wahmeyer. I'm going to butcher this. Wahmeyer. By the age of 12, Eric had lost his sight to a rare disease. But Eric's father, Ed, encouraged his son to live as normal a life as possible. He gave his son every opportunity to try new things and to take risks, and he was always there to help Eric if he needed him. With that kind of encouragement behind him, Eric explored all kinds of activities, and he soon became an accomplished mountain climber. He has climbed El Capitan, Camelback Mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, and he celebrated Helen Keller's birthday on June 27, 1995 by climbing Mount McKinley in Alaska. In fact, Eric has become such a good climber. Recently, he led his father on his first rock climbing expedition. This time around, Eric got to do the encouraging. When we encourage others, we are the voice of God, living letters. We communicate God's love, first of all, with our confession, or what we say. We also communicate our love for God by our conduct, what we do. In the 1950s, Charles Swindoll served a stint in the Marine Corps. He had the opportunity to tour the Pacific and to visit Japan. Before the men on his ship were allowed to disembark in Japan, the company commander lined them up and gave them a sober lecture. He wanted to remind them that they were walking into a totally different culture and that their customs and habits may not be welcome in Japan. Their behavior would be closely scrutinized by the Japanese citizens. It would be imperative to maintain good behavior because, as the commander said, they know nothing of your homeland except what they see